Welcome, everyone. Look, let's just dive right into this. Today, we're unpacking a massive paradigm shift in how we approach professional growth, drawing straight from the core concepts of the velocity of knowledge. For a long time, we've all operated under this outdated assumption that accumulating information is the absolute key to success. But when you look at the reality of modern work, that traditional view is totally crumbling. We're not just going to talk about what you learned today, but rather the speed at which you translate that learning into real action. We're exploring the velocity of knowledge.
And here is the harsh reality check we all need. The world no longer rewards people who simply know more. Information is literally everywhere, right? Courses, tutorials, endless stacks of books, unlimited access to knowledge sits right in our pockets every single day. The sheer volume is staggering. So having infinite access to information, that's not a competitive advantage anymore, it's just the baseline. If you're relying on just consuming more data to get ahead, you're playing a game that ended a decade ago.
Which brings us to the core problem with this whole consumption mindset. Knowledge without execution is storage. Think about that for a second. If you aren't applying what you learn, you aren't growing, you're just taking up mental space. It's a hard truth, for sure, but an absolutely essential one. True transformation, real, measurable, professional growth only happens when learning becomes an applied behavior. Otherwise, you're just a highly educated warehouse.
And this exposes what we call the illusion of learning, because it feels incredibly productive, doesn't it? Reading another leadership book, watching just one more software tutorial, saving another insightful post for later, but honestly, this is so often just productive procrastination. It creates this warm, comforting feeling of growth while completely insulating us from the actual friction of doing the work. It's a trap, and it's so easy to fall into because it validates our desire to improve without demanding the vulnerability of trying something new.
The crucial point here is recognizing this dangerous gap. There's a massive chasm between learning about a concept and becoming capable of executing it. Intellectual understanding is safe. Behavior change, that's hard. You can study strategy endlessly. You can consume productivity frameworks all day. But until your behavior actually changes, that knowledge is totally inert. You can intellectually understand exactly how to navigate a difficult team conversation, but still completely freeze up when you actually have to lead under pressure. The value is only unlocked when you cross that gap.
Moving on to the velocity advantage, let's reevaluate our leverage.
So if accumulating knowledge isn't our leverage anymore, what is? The real advantage today is defined by this four-step continuous cycle, the learning loop. It's the speed at which you can learn, apply, adjust, and improve. This is the engine of the modern professional. The faster you cycle through these four steps, the faster you adapt. People who delay implementation, they stay permanently trapped in the learn phase. But when you move rapidly from learning to applying, your execution speed effectively becomes your learning speed.
This brings us to a really fascinating contrast: passive observation versus interaction with reality. Now, reading teaches you concepts, sure, but execution teaches you judgment. When you read or watch something, you're in a sterile environment. But when you interact with reality, you introduce friction, and it's entirely through that friction of execution that you build real-world judgment. Judgment isn't built on theory, it's built on reps, on feeling the weight of a decision and dealing with its actual real-world consequences.
I really want you to let this statement sink in. One applied lesson changes more than 10 forgotten insights. That's a huge mindset shift. Our goal shouldn't be to know the most. The goal is to effectively use what we already know. Stop chasing the next groundbreaking idea if you haven't even implemented the perfectly good idea you heard yesterday. Stop consuming motivation instead of building systems.
Next, let's explore the friction of reality and how we navigate the gap.
Consider these two distinct identities, the consumer and the creator. The consumer is totally paralyzed by perfectionism. They delay applying what they learn because they want to feel ready first. They wait for more confidence, more clarity, more certainty. But as we all know, readiness rarely comes before action. The creator, on the other hand, gets that imperfect execution teaches infinitely more than perfect planning. They're comfortable looking temporarily inexperienced. They test quickly, they build, they implement imperfectly. And because they move sooner, they master the skill sooner.
And this right here is why rapid execution is so incredibly powerful. The exact second you execute, the fog lifts and your gaps become immediately visible. Doing creates friction. Friction creates awareness, and awareness creates mastery. Suddenly, you discover what sounded amazing in a book but completely fails in your actual workplace. You find out what specific microskills you're actually missing. You realize which of your core assumptions need urgent updating. This immediate feedback loop exposes your blind spots and accelerates your growth way faster than passive learning ever could.
Okay, I'm going to pause right here, and I want to ask you a direct question. What is one thing you've consumed recently that you still haven't applied? Seriously, think about that leadership framework you saved on LinkedIn, that advice you nodded along to in a meeting last week. Why is it still just sitting in storage?
Let's look at your speed learning system to break that cycle. This is how you evolve upward and intentionally accelerate your growth. First, learn with purpose. Stop consuming randomly. Target a specific, real problem you're facing. Second, and this is a total game changer, apply within 24 hours. Immediate implementation drastically strengthens retention. Third, start before mastery. Don't wait to be an expert. Practical exposure teaches you faster than waiting ever will. Fourth, seek rapid feedback to dramatically shorten your improvement loop. And finally, reflect and refine. Learning compounds through consistent iteration. The faster you cycle these 5 steps, the more adaptable you become.
Now, shifting gears to the ripple effect of enablement. Because true professional maturity demands we look beyond just our own development. Notice the quiet compounding effect of applied learning on a team level. When you implement just one idea, you improve a process. That improved process saves time for everyone involved. And that saved time, it creates the organizational capacity for even more growth. By testing ideas quickly and executing, you aren't just creating personal leverage, you're clearing the path for your entire team. Your action becomes an enabler for collective success. This quote really captures the mindset perfectly. The people who grow the fastest aren't always the smartest. They're the ones willing to learn in public. Doing this requires profound emotional resilience. It means sharing your work before it's perfect, asking questions, inviting constructive critique, having the courage to share the journey, both the successes and the stumbles. When you learn in public, you expose your blind spots faster, but more importantly, you model that vulnerability for your peers, and you shorten the mastery curve for everyone around you.
It all comes down to this. We live in a fast-moving world where your true leverage is your speed of implementation. So take that lesson you've been sitting on and apply it today. Not perfectly, not eventually, right now. Because as you step into the friction of reality and build your capability, remember our ultimate mandate. Growth isn't just how far you go, it's how many you take with you. So who are you enabling today?